Most of the time we talk about meditation as something you do when you're sitting at home with eyes closed, or you're doing it in a meditation hall or meditation center, but we don't often talk about it as in something you're doing throughout the day. When I lived as a Buddhist monk, I used to love meditating in public spaces or in situations where you normally wouldn't meditate, because I would feel what would come up in me when I sat and meditated. So since I'm no longer living as a Buddhist monk, but as a layperson with a family and fiance and kids, I wanted to share what it was like for me today when I went to the hospital to do an MRI. I have 3 herniated discs on my neck that are causing me a lot of issues. That's why if you see my collars on my t-shirts, I always have them cut off. So I asked my doctor if we could do an MRI and see what's wrong and if we can do something about it. Now, I've suffered from burnout and I have had panic attacks because of that burnout. So I haven't really thought about it because it's been many years since I did an MRI, but you go into this huge machine and it's basically a hole where they put you on a sled and they put you in there, and there's really loud sounds like tick, 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 drrrr, like these loud sounds, and it's quite a weird sensation, and if you're claustrophobic, that's going to be an issue. I never had a problem with it before, but I thought since I've had panic attacks, maybe this would be something that's kind of an issue. So I actually thought I'd tell them when I get there that I might have an issue with this, and you fill out a form where it asks if you have any metal in your body, if you have panic attacks, or all kinds of things that could become an issue for them. The morning, as it usually is as a father, and when you have family, was quite hectic. My daughter, who is 4 years old, was running around everywhere, wanting breakfast, wanting to play, wanting to do this, wanting to do that, and we have a son who's 6 months old, and he takes up a lot of attention as well, especially now that he's crawling around. It was not really a calm morning like you have when you're single and living as a monk. I came to the hospital and I was quite calm, and I was feeling like, okay, this is going to be fine. But I was wondering, what is it going to be like going into this tube, like where I have all these sounds and I'll be closed up. And I walked into the hospital, and I've always enjoyed seeing old people. And what I mean is that I always feel calm and grateful and kind of this serene feeling whenever I see really old people, especially sick people, old people, because it just makes me feel so grateful and so appreciative of my own health. And when you go into hospital, you see people lying on hospital beds, and they're lying there and half conscious, they have tubes hanging everywhere, and I just feel so much compassion for them and thinking like, oh my goodness, I was worrying this morning because I was stressing about my daughter wanting to have 10 raisins instead of we give her 5 raisins in her porridge. That's like the deal we have. And then I was like, what does that matter when you think about this person here who's like really old and can barely open their eyes? And they just looked at me when I was walking by like this, half dazed, probably half drugged also. And it just makes me feel calm. And I was walking through the hallways, and as you're walking and trying to be mindful, one of the things that's really easy to do is focus on your surroundings. You focus on the smells, the sensations of air blowing past you. What does it feel like when your feet are walking on the floor? And there's like, there were buildings, so they had paper spread out over the floor. And that has a special texture and feel to it when you're walking. I could hear the sounds, and I could hear machines as I was walking by. And there's also the anticipation of, okay, I'm going somewhere and something's going to happen. And I'm not entirely sure what that's going to be like, because it must be like 10-15 years since I did an MRI. I can't even remember. It's a long time ago. I had this injury in 2007 or 2008, so that's a long time ago. So I was walking, and I came to the hallway, and I asked the receptionist, yeah, go over there and you sit down. And I came in there, and the nurse came and like, oh yeah, are you here? Do you have a time? I'm like, yes, I have a time. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to check. And she was quite stressed. And I said, this is not really what I was hoping for. And I sat down, and like, yeah, she gave me a robe, and she like, undress and put on this, and then wait here and we'll come and get you. So I took off my clothes, and I was thinking about it also when I was there. When I was younger, you were always ashamed or like worried about, okay, I'm going to show myself like naked or half naked. But as you get older, and especially if you've been meditating, it's just your body. It's like nothing to be ashamed of it. And I was thinking about how much effort we put into hiding ourselves or showing ourselves in a special way. So I undressed, and I put on my the robes. The gown is what you call it. I guess it's a hospital gown. I'm not actually exactly sure what it's called. But I put on the hospital gown. And I sat down, and I was sitting there, and usually when I sit down in a waiting room, I just close my eyes and I start meditating. And it's a really nice way of getting centered. And it's something that's, when I start doing this, and if you're starting to do this, in the beginning you feel like, oh, what are people going to think? Like, is that weird? Is it weird that I close my eyes? What if someone sees me? They might think I'm some kind of awkward person. Or if you progressed a little bit further and you study for a while, like you're like, oh, I don't want to have people think of me as a spiritual person who's meditating, and you have all these thoughts running around, like what people think about you or what you're doing. But eventually just let go of that. It's just you sitting down, focusing on your breath and observing what you're observing. So I was sitting there meditating, and a woman came in, and she was so friendly, and she started asking me these questions that were on there. And I said, yeah, I just wanted to tell you that I have been burnt out, and I've had panic attacks some years ago, but I still have them. So I'm not sure what it's going to be like lying in this machine. And she said, oh, that's going to be fine, Martin. I'll take care of you. And she showed everything, the room, and she said, what kind of music do you want to listen to? And they had headphones that goes through a air pipe, because you can't have metal in there. So I said, like, oh, I just put some 80s or 90s music. I like that kind of music. She said, put that on. Okay. And we went into the room, and it was quite cold, and I could feel like I was getting goosebumps and feeling everything happening around me. And then I saw the machine, and it was huge, like a big machine, and lots of lights on it. It looks like a sci-fi movie. And there's a sled you lie down on. And then he said, okay, for today, we're going to do the next. So we're going to use this cage. And she said, cage. So it's literally like something this big that they put over my head. So I had it like this, like that's how close I had it to my face. It was like right up into my face, a cage like this. And there was some kind of receptor for the waves bouncing up and down. And it felt a little bit uncomfortable, I have to admit. Like I could feel how this was causing me a bit of, not anxiety, but anxiousness. And the way I describe it with my distortion practice, or distortion meditation, is you have, in your right hand, you have reality as it is, how it is actually happening right now. In your left hand, you have reality as you want it to be. And right now, those two weren't really aligning. Reality was that there was a lot of stuff happening, and I wanted to be calm, but it wasn't. So how I wanted it to be was more calm, more relaxed, and not being shoved into a tube with the iron mask over me. These two weren't in alignment. So then I had this distortion in between, this friction, which is in Buddhism called suffering, which I think is a really terrible word to describe it. But there was a friction, there was a distortion. I was not really accepting or in alignment with what was going to happen. But I just kept focusing on my breath, and I lay down, and she put this mask over me, and there was a smell there, like a really strong smell of alcohol, because they clean it with sanitizing, of course. So I lay down, and since I have problems with my neck, I have a really hard time when I lie down to get comfortable. So I kept and she said, yeah, when you lie down, eventually, when I'm taking the photos, you have to lie perfectly still and don't move, because then the images are going to be ruined, and we're going to have to do it again. So I said, okay, just fine. I lay down, and I got as comfortable as I could be. And then she put the iron mask on my face, and she started moving, and it's like, boom, you go into this tube, and then there was some flashing lights. And then she closed the door, and I could hear the ventilation going like, because there was a different kind of pressure in there. And that's also one of the things that you notice when you practice a lot of mindfulness or meditation, is that you become aware of your senses. That's basically how you meditate in daily life. You're aware of your senses around you. That helps you not be so stuck in here in what's happening inside of your mind, because you're more focused on the environment around you and what your senses are telling you than just what's happening in your mind. So as I was lying there, I could feel myself going, okay, I was opening my eyes and I was looking, and I felt like, okay, I couldn't see anything except for like some light down there, and the mask was like straight in my face. And when they had closed, there was not so much air coming through, because before it was always blowing in my face, but now it's more like stuffy, and it started to get warm in there as well. And I started to feel a little bit uncomfortable, because when I opened my eyes, I couldn't really see it. I felt like I was lying in a coffin. And then she said, okay, we're going to do the first MRI, and it's going to take this long. And it went like, and it's really loud. You have like earplugs, and then ear protection on top of that. So it's like all kinds of protection, because it's so loud. And I was lying in there, and I was just focusing on my breath, and I could feel like, oh, it's actually really wavery right now. I wasn't breathing evenly, and I just focused on trying to get the breath to be calm. And then because when you have a moment when you're having a hard time staying calm, when the reality as it is and how you want it to be, this calmness is not there, you have the distortion, you have to try to calm that down before you can actually observe it. So then instead of being completely lost in it, what you do is you focus on your breath. So I was focused on my breath. And again, this wasn't really that hard. And I could hear her like, are you okay? You're nothing, nothing's happening? And like, no, I'm fine. Because it takes a lot before I would actually lose control. But I would just lie there and I'd focus on it. And I did the first one. And then she said, okay, we're going to take a small pause. And then it was just quiet and static. And I was thinking about when I was lying there, like, oh, thank you that like the only thing I'm here for is this thing. Sure, it's really difficult and it's causing me a lot of pain, but imagine if I had like a brain tumor or I had some serious like ailments or something. Like, I am so lucky and I am so thankful that all the things I have with my body that are not really working the way they should are not really major concerns. I can still survive with them. They're difficult for sure. I have some really problematic things, but it doesn't matter because I still survive. I don't have to go with needles in my arms, and I don't have to go for checkups, chemotherapy, or like all these crazy, really difficult things that some people have to go through. So we did the first one, then we did the second one, and all the time I was just lying there focusing on my breath. And then when I had calmed down a bit, I started widening my senses, and I was listening and also trying to feel, because I could feel the magnetic fields. And I thought, I can't remember doing that the last time, because that was before I had meditated so much. And I could feel how the vibrations were kind of pulsing, like where I could feel the machine go through the layers well, I couldn't feel the layers like this, but I could feel where in my body the magnetic was like scanning kind of. And it got really warm. I felt like lots of warmth, and I felt lots of just sensations happening. And one time, like my whole arms were like twitching for some reason. I'm not sure if it was a muscle that reacted to the magnets. I don't know. But I was lying there and it went through, and I, instead of focusing on like, okay, this is difficult, I noticed that if I keep my eyes closed, it's much easier. If I open them, it would still feel a bit like I'm lying in a coffin and this is not really comfortable. So I just kept them closed, focusing on my breath. And then whenever I got calm enough, I just widened my senses, and I would hear the rushing of the air. I would hear the machine. It made such strange noises, and I would smell the smells, and it gradually got warmer and warmer in there because I've been lying there for a while. So I was just lying there, and we went through section, and then before I knew it, the 20 minutes was over. And she came in and she asked, so how did that go, Martin? Did it go okay? I'm like, yes, it went perfectly fine. And I asked her about the sensations I was feeling. She said, yes, some people can feel that. And it's just, she explained the science behind how the MRI works. And it was actually really interesting. And when we went out, I just felt such connection to this woman. Here's someone whose work is to make me feel comfortable, whose work is to help me because I am not feeling well. So her job is to first of all calm me down so that I'm in a state where I can do the examination with MRI, and then she chooses like what kind of MRIs they do and how they do it. That's like her job, I'm guessing. And then she's just it felt so nice to meet someone like that, and I just felt really grateful. So I just like, oh, is it okay if I give you a hug, please? Can I? And so she's like, yeah, everyone needs a hug on a Friday, she said. And we gave her a big hug. And I could just feel how it was so nice to connect between two humans. Like, I was a human being who was there meeting another human being who was also there for like doing the same thing. We both wanted my health to be well. I could really feel how she wanted me to feel good and for me to feel happy. And I think it's a really nice thing to do when you meet someone, to just be open and genuine towards them, and not, you don't have to be rude to people like that. I could have been really like, hey, when I came here, you were nice, or you should do this, or how come like that? I want it like this, or no, don't do that, and the music's too loud, the music is too low, or like, it would have been very easy for me to find a lot of things that I could have been upset with, but instead focusing on another human being and why is she here, and feeling the reason she's there, and that it's actually to help me. And how can you not be grateful and thankful for something like that? So by practicing mindfulness and meditation in our everyday life, it helps us go through situations that can be difficult. I'm not talking about like, this was not a war zone. I was not caught up in a building that was being bombed by missiles. It's like a completely different thing, much, much more difficult. The principle would be the same. But for me, this is just an everyday daily situation where I was experiencing something that gave me a bit of raised pulse. So the meditation and mindfulness helped me go through that. It also helped me make a really nice connection with this person whom I've never met and I will probably never meet again. But hopefully her day was a little bit nicer, a little bit more smiling because we met. And my day definitely went more smiling and happy because of it. Because after I met her and after I'd been there, I felt like, oh, that was nice. It was an experience that I really appreciated, and I felt made my day feel calmer. I feel afterwards, I feel more appreciative of the fact that I feel healthy, that I have no major ailments, that I can wake up in the mornings, I can go to sleep, my mind is working, my body is moving, and I have things that don't work, but there's nothing major that I can't live with. So be grateful and be thankful for what you have, and really experience a day to your fullest. So do you meditate in your daily life? I'd love to hear how you practice when you're out and about and moving around, and what obstacles you're facing, and also how it's helped you and in what way you find that it's useful.